Well, very funny story. The reason that Attack of the Show started going to Comic-Con was because of me.
Yeah.
Because I was actually going to Comic-Con,
Right.
just because I go there every year and have since like 1990,
Yeah.
1989, 1990. I've been going every year. So I said to one of the producers, you should go to this thing called Comic-Con. I mean, it really is our audience. I mean, I was really excited about being a part of G4 and Attack of the Show. This is, 8 years ago. I said, and the producer at the time said, Comic-Con, what's that? Is that a convention for comedians? I said, no, it's everything pop culture. It's the thing that kind of sets the tone and the trend for what's coming, and it's the early adopters, the people that are just the super fans that discover something, way before it comes out. It's sort of, whetting the appetite of all of us that are into nerd culture.
Yeah.
They ended up going that year, and they just did a couple segments with Kevin Pereira, and then the producer said, hey, that's a pretty good thing. Like, we should be doing that like every year. And I was like, yeah, you should be doing this every year.
Just send me.
Like I've been. I mean, my thoughts on G4 are, it was a great idea. I think somebody could do it better. I really feel that it just didn't have the support of the higher ups. And I don't mean the actual executives at G4.
Yeah.
It was the higher ups in terms of the parent companies that really didn't believe that there's something that could be a geek culture channel. And even then, they just made horrible decisions, like matching it with like episodes of Cops and cheaters and stupid stuff that makes no frickin' sense. I mean, come on, they should be rerunning, episodes of shows that we all love. They could rerun Space 1999 or old Doctor Who episodes, or from the 70s and 80s. I mean, just like, I feel like it was a missed opportunity, and I feel that the internet has actually taken on the job that G4 used to do.
Yeah.
I think that the powers that be above the executives at G4 decided that that demographic doesn't really. They just download stuff for free. They don't buy things, and they killed it.
So it was raising in popularity. It was along with Comic-Con, really, where
Yes.
Comic-Con started getting huge instead
Yes.
of just the nerd prom.
When
It became huge.
Exactly.
Do you think that Comic-Con in any way has suffered any similar fate? Like, is Comic-Con bulletproof from any kind of mismanagement?
No. Those guys, the people who run Comic-Con, I mean, it's a mostly volunteer organization that they just pay themselves seasonally. And they're so dedicated, and it's the same people who have been running it for the most part. And no, I don't see that happening with those guys at all. I mean, if anything, their problem is, how do we manage our success?
Right.
Because it is so wildly successful that now they can do an offshoot like WonderCon, and WonderCon is, just seeing now this sort of second year in Anaheim, because I used to go when it was in San Francisco,
Right.
Which I thought was fun, because it's just fun to get out of town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any excuse to not be in LA, I'll go to Anaheim, I'll go to San Diego, I'll go to San Francisco, I'll go to San Jose, I'll go to Phoenix, I'll go anywhere outside of LA is a better place to me.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see like the success here, and seeing the con phenomenon. There is a con phenomenon that exists now, because you've got Phoenix Comic Con, which is around Memorial Day. You've got Dragon Con. You've got Emerald Con. You've got New York Comic Con.
A dozen Wizard World cons.
Yes,
Comic-Cons.
I really feel that there is now this tribe. This has matured. And it's not just Comic Con. Comic Con being probably the most important to the studios and whatnot. But the con phenomenon has exploded, and we'll just have to all deal with it. I mean, what I love is that there's a con like almost every weekend.
Yeah.
Like, there was a party where I just went like all night,
Yeah.
where it was like a rave party in a park.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It was like in the 90s, and it's like it just went all night. And I remember like not having a hotel room, so I just sort of stayed at that thing that year. My first year going down was real simple. I just drove down. I had just moved to LA.
Yeah.
I drove down, and it was at the college, right? It wasn't in San Diego proper. It was at a college. And I remember it was all comic books, and that was great for me. I was in heaven. It's like, oh, comics, and they've got 16 millimeter prints of Star Trek episodes. That's a typical convention, like old school convention.
Right.
But mostly, I just love, going to the hotel bar, waiting in line with other people and bonding.
Yeah.
It's how I've met like friends. One of my great friends, Ron Wells, I met at Comic-Con. We were waiting in line to get to that party where I didn't have a hotel room and I just spent the night. Well, I didn't spend the night. I just stayed up and kind of dozed next to a tree.
The best memories.
Oh man, I remember being on a panel and getting booed. Well, this happens to me a lot. Is I'll go on a panel and I'll get booed. But I came and it was a Is Star Trek Dead panel.
Oh,
and I
man,
brought out
them fighting words.
I brought out a Starship Enterprise and I put on like a welder's glasses
Nice.
and I had these protective gloves and then I took a big like mallet and I smashed the Enterprise.
Wow.
And there were boos and cheers, cheers and jeers. But yeah, there've been a lot of like bizarre panel experiences. You mentioned panels and I love the fact that Comic-Con, no matter how large it gets, there'll be like the Hall H stuff, which everybody knows about, but then there's always like the smaller panels, and I think that that's where the action is.
Yeah.
The action is the smaller panels. The action is Artist Alley.
Yeah.
You know, they still support as much as like, you know, Warner Brothers would like a booth that would take up like a whole room. They still have like the smaller stuff. It's part of the mix. It's part of the pastiche of what makes a great con. I mean, that is just because Comic-Con has become what it is. And it really is sort of a shorthand now for studio and television executives to go like, oh, well, you know, at Comic-Con, they don't say Dragon Con.
Right.
Which Dragon Con is more like Cosplay Con. If you've ever been to Dragon Con, it's more focused on everyone dresses up at Dragon Con.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it just renews my faith in fandom.
Yeah,
Every
absolutely.
year it renews
Yes.
my faith in fandom. Like, it just, that passion, that spark, like, oh God, I'm so excited about everything, you know, like especially early looks at stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I think Pacific Rim is something I cannot wait
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that they trust the audience at Comic-Con to say, we're going to show you this stuff way early. I love the leaks.
Yeah.
I love the leaks from Comic-Con, the
Yeah.
videos that don't stay up for very long.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
You and I were tweeting earlier about, you know, you couldn't get a hotel. I'm like, if Chris Gore can't get a hotel, you know we're in trouble.
I was on the site and I filled out all the stuff, and it probably took me too long. I was like 5 minutes after
Yeah.
9.
Too long.
Click,
Yeah.
and then by the time I got my request back, it's like, sorry, none of my hotels were possible. So I actually got a fan actually help me out.
Yeah.
A fan that like just said, we have an extra one, I'll give it to you. I gave this person my credit card number.
Oh,
I'm
man.
a trusting, but the thing is nerds are just very like trustworthy, I feel like.
Yeah.
What's weird about Comic-Con, you'll hear stories about the hassles and stuff like that. You will rarely ever hear a story of like, God, this person was a real jerk to me. Because
Yeah.
everybody is so cool to each
Yeah.
other. Nerds are, I think it's sort of like being trained to like, when you grow up a nerd and you grow up being harassed and abused by occasionally jocks, which, you know, we're talking about the jock wars, you know, the dark times. Those no longer exist.
That's right. We have won. We've declared victories.
Yeah, now those wars have migrated online where people harass each other on the internet. But yeah, I think sort of because of growing up and everyone, you know, like experiences are just like people are really cool with each other, with the exception of that one occurrence at Comic-Con with that stabbing,
Yeah.
which apparently was, I guess, like two friends, and it was an
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah.
It was an accident. It wasn't malicious or intentional even.
But that's not a fun story.
That's not a fun story. We don't want to
to
focus on that.
Yeah.
But you don't hear stories. I mean, do you? Like everyone is
right.
really not. And the thing is, this, I bond with people in line,
Yeah.
or people who are like I've become friends with people whose work I'm fan of, like Jonan Vasquez, you know, who I met at Comic-Con. He was doing a signing, and went up there. Like my daughter's a big fan of his. She read Johnny the Homicidal Maniac at way too young of an age. I'm a bad influence. What can I say? And so I become friends with people who are in the industry.
In the midst of all the hassle, do you think it'll ever get to a point to where it's just not worth the pain? I mean, you kind of get in a mind.
I thought about that this year when I like, and first of all, it's weird because I can't get a pro badge. They're like, well, we'll have to look at your pro badge status. I've been going for over 20 years. I'm 20 years, and for the last 10, I've been a pro because
Yeah.
I've been involved in projects. And they said, well, you're press. So I get all these press releases for stuff. They're like, we hope you'll be covering. It's like, I'm not covering anything.
Right.
You know, I'm there to do my podcast, to meet other fans, to talk about my animated web shows that are coming out, or to talk about my comedy album. Like, I'm not there to I don't cover press anymore. The sort of the end of G4 was also the end of an era for me. You know, I'm not reviewing movies anymore.
Wow.
I'm not covering things as a press person. Now that doesn't mean that I'm not also passionate and enthusiastic, just as all of us are. If I see Pacific Rim and it's amazing, I'm going to tell you about it. I'm going to say it was amazing, but so is everybody else on Twitter.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just not officially working in a capacity as a critic, because I think that job is dead. That job is dead and over. But to answer your question, the hassle, I don't know. I think that just sort of depends on your situation, because you can get a hotel room, right? You can actually get a hotel room without using their system, but you'll pay $650 a night for a regular room at the Marriott, which is about 3 times what the normal rate is.
Right. Or you'll be 20 miles away.
Or you'll be 20 miles away.
$100 a night. Or
Yeah,
more.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Like, I would ask you guys that question. I like asking. They're experts too.
Flipping it on us.
We've been going collectively 50 years of
That's
going to
right.
Comic-Con here, or at least it feels like 50.
I felt like I've aged 50 years. Is that
Yeah. Well, what do you got? I mean, like, you know, like there was one year where I was transitionally, like, between jobs, whatever, where I wasn't gonna go. I was like, I can't afford it.
Yeah.
So what I did was at the last minute I said, I cannot go. So I drove down and I just stayed there for the day. I think that was the year where I just didn't have a hotel room and I kind of spent the night at this rave party.
And it's funny because when you arrive, it's sort of like this collective high five, like we made it. We
Yeah,
did
yes,
it.
I know, we're here. There's that weird enthusiasm, and it's almost Disneyland-like in a sense, you know, where you're at WonderCon and everybody's so nice to each other. The only thing I would say is I wish that backpacks had nerve endings, because it's you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll be like, you know, and it's not that anyone intentionally, but you'll get that sort of like bump in the
Swing,
like what the hell, you know, is going on here with your backpack?
Yeah.
But I think all of this is because this whole fandom really, I think Star Wars was the touching point. I love seeing those pictures from 1976
right.
with like Mark Hamill sitting at a little card table with these paintings by Ralph McQuarrie, the Star Wars. because hey, I can show it to camera.
That's right.
Can you see that?
He is.
Can you see my
He
patch?
is swagged out. Like, show him your back.
George has a posse. George has a posse, and then my back is just a Yoda.
That is.
You see that?
That is epic.
Yeah. So I think it's really Star Wars that was the touchstone for fandom kind of being on the rise. J.J. Abrams, it's so fascinating now. He's in charge of the 2 biggest franchises in the genre. Period. Star Trek and Star Wars.
It's a little crazy having one guy with that much control
Right.
of our passions.
It's like God, Jesus, J.J. Abrams. Because
Yeah,
as far
yeah.
as wielding so much power, it's like, oh.
Yeah. So, but I think he's a good fit for Star Wars Episode 7 because he's more of a Star Wars fan than a Star Trek fan. If you look at that new international trailer for Star Trek Into Darkness looks like a Star Wars
Absolutely.
movie. It's everything except for Captain Kirk saying, "Never tell me the odds," you know, as he's like taking that like Galileo ship that looks like a Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Dude, make a Star Wars movie, all right? We get it. You want to make a Star Wars movie, JJ. So I don't know. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that. Because this is my favorite conversations. Is when you're like in line, it's like, well, I saw the trailer for this. I don't know. Well, I heard Pacific Rim, blah, blah, blah. Well, Episode 7, the rumor is blah, blah, blah. So those kind of things, those conversations where by the end I start to get convention voice, I can feel I'm getting it now. I'm getting convention voice as we speak. I can barely talk. I think it'll be definitely the best of the movies post-Jedi. You know what I mean? Like I really think no matter what, especially when you've got like, you know, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford returning. I'm sure for like cameos,
crazy.
I don't know that they could all carry the movie in a sense, but
I don't know if I want to see Hamill and Fisher swinging across the chasm. You know?
yeah, exactly.
They'll be pointing other people where to go to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I am really curious to see. I know there's going to be. I just went to this event where they had the 66 Batman. They're rolling out the whole new line because Warner Brothers realizes like we're not going to have a Batman movie for a really long time. We got to reinvent Batman. We got to do something for the fans. So just to keep like Batman kind of in the zeitgeist, they've released a line of 66 Batman toys. on my Instagram there are a
I've seen
ton of pictures.
the figures.
It's amazing, like action figures, like the original Batmobile but larger size, Ken and Barbie, Batman, like the '66 Bat phone that lights up you can put under cake glass, like all the stuff that we wish existed. When I saw that Batman TV series, like in reruns as a kid, I would say that between Batman and Star Wars and zombies, it's like that's sort of like the mix of that, the holy triumvirate of the things that
you need to mash all that into one creation.
And Star Trek also is like in there as well. Like I can't, it's like I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad, who was into computers, which was not like a career path necessarily at that time.
Computers are not really going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. That's not gonna.
It's a cycle. It's gonna. Fizzle out.
Yeah. That's those are my sort of big things. Than anything that's an offshoot of those, just anything. So
what's your thoughts on that?
Having done that, and especially having worked in print and written books, and my favorite is the internet and the sort of instantaneous feedback and conversation that you get, and I think that is my preferred. That's of all of that stuff. Like having seen everything evolved, I just the internet, and especially things like Twitter. I mean, I love having conversations with fans on Twitter. The fact that like something can happen at WonderCon, it can be a touchstone, and suddenly you're seeing pictures of it everywhere and hashtags, and I love the sort of mass consciousness, the sort of Borg-like consciousness of the internet, and you get to see, and I guess the studios are even starting to pay attention to, they know like on a Friday how well a movie's going to do based on the conversation that can be observed via Twitter.
It's so interesting.
I don't know. I also predict that like the things are going to shift. Like we've seen changes like where a movie theater attendance is dropping. I really think that like someday at some point someone is going to release a movie on the internet and it's going to make more money in a day than any movie in the top 10 box office, because I think that's where our habits have shifted. I mean, 2012 was the year that first of all the world didn't end, good, but secondly it was the first year where sales, like legal download sales, eclipsed DVD sales. Legal individual, like people purchasing, I'm buying this episode of this, or I'm buying this, movie, that eclipsed DVDs. Wow. So I think that you're seeing a shift in that where, people are like, I don't want a shelf filled with boxes. I have a drive. It's in the cloud, which I still don't trust. No. I think the cloud is Skynet 2.0. That's I don't trust the cloud. I like to still have a physical box. I like having my Blade Runner box set, 5-disc box set that comes, that comes with a car. I love that.
That's interesting because it's the physical form that's collectible, not necessarily the content inside. Because content is online somewhere, so it's more the symbolism of that.
Even that, take your digital copy, which is pretty much a worthless thing to it's your key code is the digital copy.
Yeah.
Which is weird. I think the only one that gets it right is really Disney, because they sell you the Blu-ray, the standard def DVD, and the digital copy all in one box. Right. I love that aspect.
Yeah.
So that's neat, and seeing media change from like, look, I've got my VHS, my Laserdisc, to like now it's like in the air. Yeah. If you try to explain someone what the cloud was back when they collected Laserdisc, they wouldn't be able to conceive of it. What is the cloud? I get sad. And I always say goodbye to Comic-Con when I leave. There's that Sunday night, like
the blues.
That blues where just like it's like Sunday and it's like, oh, it's 3:00, it's 4:00, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be done. There's something really emotional about the end of Comic-Con. I can't explain it. I don't get that way at other cons. Yeah. Other cons, like, that was a good time. Yeah. Why does that happen at Comic-Con?
Do you ever stop before that last couple hours and just look around and go, this is awesome?
I always do. I always stop and I say, this is awesome. I look and I feel like I'm giving Comic-Con a giant hug with my brain, because I look at it and there's just something, it's like, because I look forward to it all year. I'm planning for it. I'm making a costume or doing something strange. Yeah. And my costumes are stupid. I feel like there's a lot of fans cosplayers that are like, oh, well, I have an accurate this, or like, look how perfect my costume is. I like to make a costume where it's like catching a moment. Yeah. I've been wearing a costume here at WonderCon where it's Captain Kirk. There's pictures of it around where I'm dressed as Kirk. Oh my God, it's such a good Bane. Yes. Yeah. Well, Bane.
You have my permission to go to WonderCon.
Yes. Oh my God, what a good Bane costume. I gotta catch that guy. Anyways, I'm just as Kirk from the beginning of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, except I've got swelled hands.
Oh, I saw that.
So I've got like these hands that are completely swelled, and I've just been walking around saying like, look, what happens on Romulus stays on Romulus unless you put your finger in it, and then you have an issue. So.
And some of your costumes involve partial nudity. So
no, I dressed as a slave Leia last year. Just to make a point at a panel, and then I've dressed as Batman, but Batman after he gets off work, where I get the, crap beat out of me. Well, I feel like now that G4 is over, I know a lot of people are sad about it, but I feel like liberated. I feel like now I can do all the stuff that I want to do. I really want to do. So obviously I started a podcast about 1.5 years ago called PodCRASH, which every week I'm a guest on a different podcast, including this one. Yeah. So I take highlights and clips. So it's like if you listen to my podcast every week, I'm a guest, but every week the show is different. So you get to listen to all different kinds of podcasts, everything from like Doctor Who to Star Wars podcasts to, a sex podcast to music or movie podcast. Awesome. So doing that, and I've been doing that show live at conventions. I have a comedy album coming out called Celebrities Poop, where you'll get to buy a book that is a page-for-page parody of the book Everyone Poops. Yeah. And it's exactly a parody, and then in the back you get a download code for my album.
Nice.
I'll have that at Comic-Con. I'll be doing a signing of that. I have an animated web series called Fetishville that is coming out on one of the major YouTube animation channels. I can't say which at the moment. But Fetishville will be coming out at Comic-Con in July. And then I'm following it up with one called Last Guys on Earth, which is an animated series about two guys who wake up one day and they're the last guys on Earth and they can do whatever they want. And that's 2D animated, flash animation. So really I'm moving more towards animation because I love doing cartoon voices. I can do a perfect Watto. I'm supposed to do Watto from Star Wars Episode 1 in one of the Star Wars video games. Watto, if you don't remember, was the flying alien, the Toydarian, who forces Anakin to work retail on Tatooine. Little Annie. So I've always loved doing voices, but when I say I want to do voice work, it's hard for me to transition into that because people don't see me as that. So I'm going to create my own animated shows where I get to do voices. So doing that and doing stand-up comedy, and I'm everything that I do. It's weird when you have the kind of job that I have, because I don't, and I know that you understand this. You don't wake up someday and it's like, well, I'm going to punch in and do my job as comedian. Yeah. Chunk. Yeah. It's like, no, it's you decide to do something and you have to make a job for yourself. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's exciting about something like Comic-Con is it shows you it's possible. I think if you ask any creator who is at Comic-Con, no one said to them like, no one said to them like, hey, you should do a comic book about zombies. No one came to Robert Kirkman like, would you like a job writing a comic book about, it's a zombie comic book where it just sort of continues with the same characters on and on and on. I will accept that job. It's like, no, he thought of it and decided to do it and created it. And I think that's what's amazing about Comic-Con is it inspires that kind of passion and creativity where you go, I'm going to choose to do something that I thought of. And the normal way that we're programmed, in educationally speaking, in the United States is to, here's some information, now go and apply for a job where you can be a productive citizen. But I think that there's a different way, there's a different path, and I think Comic-Con shows you that path, that everyone there from creator, just they thought of it and they made it. Yeah. Or as Prince Barron said once in the Flash Gordon cartoon from the 80s, what the mind can imagine, the body can do. I'm sure I got that quote slightly wrong, but that's the spirit of that quote. I can't believe I referenced the Flash Gordon cartoon by Filmation from the 80s that I recently bought on DVD.
True nerd.
Oh my God, that was a really long rant, but I did have a point in there.
Well,
but thank you for having me on the show, because I
yeah,
follow your
thank you
Twitter
so much.
and the site, and
Yeah.
I feel like you have incredibly useful information for people going to cons. I would just say if someone on Kickstarter invents a backpack that has nerve endings, I will purchase that backpack, because I don't want to bump into anybody. I don't want to harm anyone.
Yeah.
Let's make the stroller ban existent everywhere at Comic-Con.
There you
I
go.
can't tell you how many times my ankles have been bumped by a baby in a stroller. Get a Bjorn! Get a Bjorn! People who have babies. You can follow me at that Chris Gore. You can also follow my show at PodCRASH Show. And you can find my show, you can go to just chrisgore.com for everything. Get my podcast on iTunes, and you'll keep up with all the stuff that's going on. Thank you for
Great.
that.
Yeah,
And,
thank
oh,
you.
the other thing I want to plug, which I think your audience would really love.
Yeah.
Sorry to get
Absolutely.
this in, is Comic Book Live. It's a group that I perform in. We do a thing that we call cosplay comedy, where we dress in costume and we perform things like the Star Wars Episode 7, the Batman Holiday Special. We also did the Walking Dead series finale, in which I played Merle. And we have a YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/comicbooklive, you'll see videos from our shows. But we're doing that today, actually, at WonderCon, 7:30 p.m. Half of my panel is going to be PodCRASH, where I'll have Adrian Curry as my guest. The second half is going to be Comic Book Live.
Awesome.
And we'll be performing Star Wars Episode 7, the improv comedy version.
Right.
So,
Awesome.
cosplay comedy is something where I'll dress like Batman doing a bad stand-up comedy. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.